Hello, and welcome to another episode of From the Green Room. I'm Bryan Zelmer, Director of KU Presents at Kutztown University in Kutztown, Pennsylvania. And we're doing this series, bringing it to you in lieu of having live performances this year. We hope you're getting something out of all of these episodes as we talk with different performing arts industry folks. And today we've got a really exciting program for you. But before we get into that, I just want to let you know and remind you that you're invited to be part of this conversation. Just simply enter your remarks or questions into the comment section, whether you're watching on Facebook Live or YouTube, and we'll try to get to those during the program. So please join the conversation. And also, if you missed the big announcement the last 2 weeks now, we've been telling you, we have a return finally of in-person performances coming to Kutztown University. The last 3 weeks of April, we will be bringing you a short series we're calling Arts Alive. And so an in-person audience will be welcome to come to these outdoor shows, or you can tune in virtually if that's more your thing right now. We totally understand that. But we are requiring tickets no matter which way you go. One, so we know how to send the link to you for the virtual tune-in. And if you're coming in person, we need to make sure we stay within capacity limits. So please check out this short video and you'll see the entire lineup. KU Presents is excited to announce the return to live in-person performances with a series titled Arts Alive. This series includes 4 performances over the course of the last 3 Fridays in April. You can attend these outdoor performances in person or virtually from anywhere via the live stream. While this series is free and open to the public, tickets will be required to maintain capacity limits for in-person and to obtain the access link for joining digitally. We kick things off on Friday, April 16th with the Irish and Celtic music of Poor Man's Gambit. Then, on Friday, April 23rd, we explore iconic rock and pop songs from the 60s and 70s as they are reimagined through jazz with the group Living Standards. And on Friday, April 30th, we present a double feature, starting the evening with the Latin rhythms of the Tierra Caliente. Quiero agua sin hielo. Quiero agua sin hielo. And we close the evening and our short series with a contemporary ballet performance by Sharp Dance Company. The performances begin at 6 p.m. each week. Get your tickets now or learn more by going to kupresents.org. That's kupresents.org. And we'll see you at Schaefer. So we're really excited, again, to be returning to performances in person. How exciting. And if you noticed, one of the names on that lineup might sound familiar. It's today's guest, Living Standards, and we'll be getting to them shortly. But first, I want to bring in our first ever co-host. This is the first time we have a co-host for our program. I'm really, really happy he could join us. John Ernesto has been part of Berks Jazz Festival since its inception in 1991, and he's been the general manager for Jazz Fest for the last 27 years. He's also the general manager of the Reading Blues Fest, and he was the former marketing director at the Reading Eagle before retiring in 2014 after 49 years with the newspaper. Hi, John. Welcome to the program, and thanks for co-hosting.
Hi, Brian. How are you? Thanks for having me. It's great to talk music, and it's great to see that KU Presents is doing some live music in April.
Yeah.
Like everyone else, I miss live music. So
yes, greatly. So this time last year, the festival was supposed to be celebrating its 30th anniversary, and we all know what happened. And then right now, this time we're in right now would have been when you had rescheduled the 30th anniversary, but we're still in this pandemic. And so now, hopefully, ultimately, it's going to be landing and taking place in August of this year. Is that correct?
Yes, we settled on moving it from April to August. And the dates are August 13th to the 22nd. And it's been a challenge, to say the least, just like everybody else in the music business. Actually, a year ago today, we would be midway through the 30th anniversary festival in 2020. So, but it is what it is. And with Berks Arts and everyone there, we moved to April of 21, figuring, wow, this is going to be great. We got everybody to come back, same dates, same lineup, same schedule. Obviously, as the year went along, we knew that wasn't going to work in April, so we then decided to move it towards August. Cautiously optimistic, but with the vaccinations moving forward rapidly, I think we're going to be okay.
Well, we're rooting for you, and we're hoping we're looking forward to it too. So we know it's going to come together. We're just feeling it. We're going to stay positive.
Yeah.
For those people tuning in who aren't familiar with Berks Jazz Fest, can you just give them a high level idea of what it is?
Sure.
It's been around for 30 years.
Yeah, it started in 1991. It was the collaboration between Berks Arts Council, which is now Berks Arts, but it was a combination of the Berks Arts Council and the Visitors Bureau and some hotels. They wanted to create an event, a cultural tourism event, and traditionally a slow period of time in our area. So they came up with the general manager, the executive director of the Arts Council at the time, a gentleman by the name of Bill Royston. He has some history of presenting shows in the Philadelphia area. And so they came up with this idea of doing a jazz festival. And I was the marketing director at the newspaper, and they came to me and asked me to get involved, which I did because the newspaper was always ready to support local events and special initiatives like this. And that's how it started. It was a 2.5-day festival. I think there were 7 acts, and it was positively received. And so there were some growing pains, and I was asked to be co-chairman in the 3rd year. Then they asked me to take over in the 4th year, so as general manager.
It's huge now. Do you have a number? I looked on your website, and you have a lot of people performing, and you had to break them down into 2 categories. I see you have the major artists that you're calling it, major concerts and local concerts.
Right.
How many in all do you have? Do you know the number?
It's around 50, about 55 ticketed events, major ticket events, and then we have the community events that are restaurants, clubs, churches, various organizations to get involved, and we love that part of the festival. Our goal, and my goal when I took over, was try to get as much as a community involved as possible to make it a true community event. And some years we've had up to 75 to 100 community concerts at venues all throughout the 10 days, and some before and after. And that's how we ended up partnering with KU. I wanted to get them involved because of the series you guys were doing up in the university, and help each other.
Nice. Yeah, we enjoy having a partnership with you, so that's great. We look forward to continuing that. Just curious, did you always have a thing for jazz? I know, you and I have had conversations. We've gone out to dinner and stuff, where you've told me about, how much jazz is not just Jazz Fest for you. For people that don't know John Ernesto, he lives jazz. Like, you take this, and every year you take all these cruises, the jazz cruises, and you're just always around jazz, seeking jazz. When did jazz become a thing in your life? Did you grow up with it, or?
Well, I've always loved music, and I got hooked on instrumental jazz back in the '60s when I was graduating from high school in '66, and Dave Brubeck. I just got hooked on that West Coast sound. I listened to that a lot, and my musical tastes vary. I mean, wasn't a hardcore jazz guy through my early years, but I always loved music. And when I married my wife Susie in 1977, she was a big music fan too. She was into folk and roots music, and so I like to taste as much music as I can, but I would listen to jazz. But then when I got involved in 1991, it was kind of bringing me full circle back into the jazz world. So
nice.
And I just like to go see things and learn things and meet people and network, and that's why I do a lot of things around the festival, because it's over 30 years, it's creating some great partnerships that have benefited the Jazz Festival.
That's great, and the festival in turn has benefited the community, I know, greatly too. Before we bring our guests out, I just have we have questions that the commercial music students always submit, usually for our guests, but they submitted one for not only our musical guests, but for you today as well. So their question for you is, what is your booking process like for artists and groups? What advice do you have for young jazz musicians looking to get a chance to perform at one of your festival stages in the future?
Well, the process is kind of broken up into several levels. We have the major concerts at the main venues. Obviously, that's where the success of the failure lies with selling the tickets. But I'm always interested in giving opportunities to young artists. It's a challenge these days. There's a lot of great jazz artists who aren't being heard. As far as my advice to young students or young musicians would be to just put something together. Be professional and don't be afraid to reach out to people and ask. And also, if you do get I always tell this to young people: if you do get a gig or you get an opportunity to play, make sure you have your marketing chops in order too, so you can help sell tickets for the promoter, be a partner, have skin in the game. Unfortunately, there's so many artists that I've dealt with over the years. It's changed a lot, but back in the day, they just felt, they're coming to do a gig. You got to do your work to sell the tickets, and I'm sure you've experienced this many times too. And I work with a lot of artists, and I tell them, I need your help to spread the word to your fans. And with the advent of social media and the growth of social media, that's helped a lot. Yeah, it's helped a lot with artists helping you.
Well, I want to have us, thank you for letting me interview you for a minute, because you're supposed to be one of the co-hosts. So I'm going to take you off the interviewing seat, and we're going to show a quick promo video of the Jazz Fest, and then we'll talk our guests. We'll bring our guests in and interview them, okay? Here's some information about this year's Jazz Fest.
We're back and hotter than ever. The 30th annual Boscov's Berks Jazz Fest has been rescheduled for this summer, August 13th through the 22nd. Your favorite performers can hardly wait to bring live jazz and blues back, and Berks Arts has been busy making it happen. Get ready to warm up to the best hot and cool jazz again with a lineup that's ready to take the chill off the recent setbacks. Tickets are on sale now. Hot enough for you? For a complete schedule, artist bios, and detailed information on ticket refunds and ticket purchases, visit berksjazzfest.com.
All right, cool. Looks really exciting, John. Congrats on that lineup. So we're going to bring in our guests, but first let me introduce them. Karl Latham, it's Living Standards is the name of the group. Karl Latham's concept for Living Standards is that of combining high-level musicianship with collective group playing, improvisation, with rhythmic and harmonic adventure, all traveling together in a vehicle of iconic popular music standards from the 1960s and 70s as reimagined through jazz. Karl is fond of referring to this project as Living Standards, aka Jazz for Everyone. Here's a short video just to give you a taste from one of their recent live streams. Great. All right, let's bring the band in. We'll get chatting with them. Karl, Mitch, George, and Alex.
Bryan.
How are you guys? Oh, distortion. I don't know whose mic has the distortion. Is that mine? No? Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulty, everybody. I think it's gone. Okay. So, hey, Karl, how are you doing?
Good, man. How are you doing? Nice to see you.
Great to see you. Yeah, you too. So it's great to see you. You want to introduce your band? This is a project, right, that you put together?
Yeah, it's kind of started a few years ago with a great guitar player named John Hart. And Mark Egan and I played together a lot. And we started that project with John, and it was originally called Unit 1. And then John assumed the guitar chair at University of Miami. So then Vic Juris kind of filled in for a minute, and unfortunately we lost Vic. So now this is a new formation. Mark is kind of floating around, and I've known Mitch Stein for many years. He and I played in the same band with John that I played with John Hart, and Alex and I have been playing with the great John Lee, and I just had the really great pleasure to start playing with George Farmer on
Oh, you froze on us, Karl.
That's-
You froze on us. I think you have a bad connection. So we're going to move on. Why don't I quickly introduce each of the guys here? I've got their little bios here while Karl figures out his connection issues. Alex Collins is in the bottom left there, and I'm just going to give a high-level version of your bios because you all have. It would take the whole program to go through all of your information. You're all incredibly, experienced. So anyway, Alex Collins, a pianist, a composer, arranger, vibraphonist. You made your debut at Tanglewood, playing with Brandon Wright Quartet, and you have a a master's in music from Manhattan School of Music, a bachelor's from Eastman School of Music. You have your own band, the Alex Collins Trio, and you've performed with a whole bunch of people, including the Dizzy Gillespie All-Stars. Do you have a question for him, John?
Wow. Well, first of all, it's nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you too.
And I enjoyed listening to your music. Actually, I was just telling Bryan, I watched the video. You did a taping with John Lee and earlier this month, I believe it was not too long ago, and it's on Facebook. I saw it.
Oh,
yeah, YouTube. Yeah, so I enjoyed that. I've seen John Lee perform many times, but so this project that you have, what are some of the tunes that your pop tunes that you're putting your jazz touches to?
So this tune we've been doing lately, that little clip that you heard was actually our rendition, believe it or not, of Layla by Eric Clapton.
All right, yeah.
So you caught a part where Mitch was taking a solo, but that was actually over the changes of Layla.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of cool tunes like that. The tunes I believe we're doing on the concert, I mean, I want to let Karl officially speak for that. But some of the tunes that we're doing, let's see. We do a tune called Taxman.
The Beatles tune?
I believe so, yeah. What other? I'm trying to think of the other tunes. I'm like,
That's all
right.
right.
That's not important. I
We'll
like
get
the
the other-
project. I think the project is awesome. I think it's a great way to connect people to jazz, non-jazzers to hear tunes that they grew up with, or to get them to hear it in a different vein. I think it's awesome.
oh yeah, and these guys are so brilliant. Mitch Stein, George Farmer, Karl Latham. These guys are heavyweights, so I'm just lucky to get to play with them. Period.
Let's meet our next person, Mitch Stein. He's the guitarist. He's got his band, the Herminators. He's performed with a huge list of people, including David Sanborn, the Brecker Brothers, Bill Evans, and on and on and on and on. How you doing, Mitch? Was that you having the? Oh, go ahead and talk. Let's hear you. Okay. We're having an issue. I'm going to ask if you can maybe just leave the program and try coming back, because anytime your mic is not muted, we're getting like crazy distortion and we can't hear you. So the joys of live
Technology.
All right.
We're
So
down
we're
to four now.
George Farmer, the bass player.
And then there was
trained at
four.
a young age. Trained at a young age by your father, who was a legendary jazz trumpeter, Art Farmer. You had conservatory training from the Academy of Music and Performing Arts in Vienna. Among your first gigs was the Young Lions of Jazz with Delfeo Marsalis and Mark Whitfield. And in addition to that, I found it interesting that you also have played the principal bass part for 6 Tony Award-winning Broadway musicals and recorded on their cast albums, including Ain't Too Proud, the musical, Memphis, the musical, and Spring Awakening, the musical. Welcome to the show. I'll let John ask the questions, but
Thank you.
Well, I mean, my question, I just like to hear more from George and this project, and just a little bit about himself. And I mean, the resume is awesome. So I just like to hear more about yourself.
Oh, that's very kind. Well, I'm the newest member to this group, and I will follow Alex's lead and let Karl talk about the group, because I don't really have that much to say about it.
okay.
Nevertheless, I'm a bass player. I live in New York City. I'm originally from Vienna, Austria, and I've been a freelance musician now for 30 years. And playing in Vienna and in New York. I moved to New York City in '96, towards the fall of '96, and have been incredibly lucky and also quite industrious to make a living out of playing the bass all these years. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
That's great. That's great.
Mitch and Karl, welcome back. Let's try Mitch first. He's on the bottom left there.
Can you hear
Mitch,
me?
yes, you sound
Yes.
perfectly clear now. Excellent.
All right.
So John was about to ask you a question, and we were having technical issues with you.
Well, I mean, the beauty of what we're doing here today is, I mean, I've been involved with this music for a long time, but you learn something new every day. I heard some of your names, but I really don't know a lot about you. And it's just great learning and talking to you and seeing you do this project. And I just like to hear you guys talk about the show, about this project and working together and presenting this music.
Well, I mean, I've known Karl forever, maybe 25 years or something like that. You know, we played together in a bunch of different situations. Alex, I've had the pleasure of playing with recently, you know, doing this project. And George is a recent addition to the band. I actually played the Berks Jazz Fest with the Brecker Brothers reunion band a bunch of years ago.
Sure, yeah, a couple years ago, yeah. I've become a good friend of Randy's over the years. He's a great guy. I love him. His wife is the best. So.
Yeah. Actually, that's not too far from me. I'm in Easton.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I'm originally from New York. I moved out here 12 and a half years ago. Just priced out in New York. I wasn't working that much in New York. I was more on the road, doing stuff, playing with Bill Evans and Steve Kimmock and Randy Brecker and different people. So it was like I didn't really need to be in New York. And what I always tell people, they say, "Why did you go out there?" And I said, "Because out here I get to keep my money. I don't have to shell it out just to live."
Yeah. Let's get Karl into the conversation. Good to see you moving and not frozen.
I'm back, man. Am I here?
Yeah, that's great. Now, Karl, you've been doing a lot of things online lately, live from the cabin. The cabin, I understand, that's your house or attached to your house?
You're kind of now you're in another section of the cabin. Yeah, the cabin. This cabin is the former home of Mark Egan's, great bass player.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and it has Mark and I are very good friends. Maybe I froze when I was talking about it. That's how this project started. Was Mark and I have been playing together, probably about 20 years now. And it started with John Hart playing guitar, but he moved on to assumed the chair in Miami. He's at Frost now. And then Vic Joris did the last CD, but unfortunately we lost Vic. I've known Vic since I was 12 years old. That's one of those things. Yeah. But it's a crazy studio. I was trying to show you the other room. It was designed by John Stork, who designed Jimi Hendrix's Electric Lady Studio.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of a super cool spot. The guys have been up here, and that's, I created this cabin thing, Bryan, really just not with any thought of income, but strictly so that all of us wouldn't go insane during COVID, just create a place for people to perform and play. And, we kind of hang out, and totally socially distanced. Well, Alex is usually about 20 feet from me in the big room here. Mitch is in another corner, and we put George in the control room, while we're playing with headphones and little webcams and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was part of the clip that we saw, was one of those from the cabin, live from the cabin stuff. So you guys all, someone mentioned, I forgot what you said. I think George said the word, and you're all freelance musicians, essentially, meaning that you're not tied to any or stuck to any, is another way of putting it, to any one group. And as a result, you guys gotten tons of work with all different kinds of people, which, if you're part of one particular group, you don't get that opportunity. I always have to bring in questions to tie in the students being part of a university. Can you maybe just explain about how you guys, are able to make a living that way, and how does one fresh out of university be able to try to attempt that kind of path in their future?
I would start by saying it's important to learn how to become an all-around good musician. So whatever you like, whether it's R&B, jazz, pop, classical music, learning how to do everything well. And I'm not saying become a jack of all trades by any means. You can still be an artist, but really being ready for situations of all sorts, being ready to play weddings, private parties, being ready to teach. It's about a lot of different things and putting them all together and growing into different gigs too. Not saying I don't do that, so I won't do it. Saying this is the first time I'm going to learn how to do it. You know?
Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the keys is to always try to play with people who are better than you. You know, you don't learn anything from people who don't play as well as you. You know, you always try to step up your game. You know,
that's why you cats are all in this group.
Yeah, no doubt.
Nice.
What artists have inspired you? Anybody can take this question. Inspired you to do what you're doing now, or I mean, to get you into this business? I mean, it's a challenging business. I have so much respect for musicians who are trying to make it, especially this last year. But I mean, it's a hard business, and so I just wonder what kind of artists, you know, some of the artists who inspired you, or you look up to, or whatever, you know.
Well, the Beatles for me was the first. You know, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and Carlos Santana, Johnny Winter, and then kind of after that, that's when I got into jazz. My father kind of secretly, while I was listening to all that stuff for my birthday, he'd give me Joe Pass Virtuoso and Jim Hall Trio. And I'd look at the records and go, what is this? But then I listened to it and I go like, man, this is great. So I got into the jazz thing, and then I found out about Wes Montgomery and Pat Martino and George Benson and Kenny Burrell and Jim Hall and these guys, and really got into that, and then started going more into electric thing. So it's kind of an evolution, you know, trying to find my own kind of way to do it. So, you know, I'm interested in artists, you know, all sorts of different kinds of artists.
George, from Vienna, how different was it there from New York? I mean, in terms of the jazz scene.
Oh, it was night and day. It was absolutely night and day. You know, you have to. I do have to put this disclaimer out that I've been around music my entire life, so I don't necessarily know anything else. I've been around musicians my entire life. That's, you know, however you want to define normal. My normal has always been around musicians. That's, you know, that's kind of it.
Nice.
Nevertheless, it did take, you know, quite some time for me to sort of find my path, and that's certainly not over yet. That is, you know, a lifelong journey, a lifelong discovery, so to speak. The band that kind of did it for me was Living Color, and that was, you know, when I was a teenager, and they came through Vienna, and I already was dabbling in music and definitely had listened to a lot of music already, so my ears were not necessarily tuned to one style or another, and yet, you know, here comes this band that did everything that I had sort of imagined in my mind. You know, if you were to think of your favorite ideas, you know, they were doing it live, and I was like, okay, so there's room for me, you know. It does exist. It's not just my imagination, you know. Nice. So yeah, that band definitely did it for me. And then, you know, there's a slew of artists. I'm a lifelong Miles Davis fan. I'm a lifelong Ahmad Jamal fan. I'm a lifelong Kate Bush fan, for what it's worth, you know. And to come back to your question of Vienna versus New York, very, very different, obviously. I mean, you know, Vienna does not necessarily have a jazz background as such. It has a very strong music background, and that is palpable wherever you are in the city. But for me, it was, you know, it was jazz. I'd rather call it American music, right? That just did it for me. And since I am American, the move over here was facilitated by that. Let me put it this way.
Cool. Now, Karl, we were starting to get into it a little earlier with Alex when you were having technical issues. John was asking, what can the audience expect? We call it jazz for everyone. And, so what are some of the music that from the 60s and 70s that our audience might recognize?
Yeah, I think they should recognize all of it. There's some Beatles in the mix. That's my concept I do have another project called Big Funk, with which we do the same concept. We're trying to provide the vehicle of popular music. I mean, the standards of standards that we all grow up and play, and Stella and Green Dolphin Street and everything. This was popular music, So the idea is to present this type of popular vehicle and have great guys like Mitch and George and Alex improvise in it, So there'll be Beatles. There'll be what are we playing this time? Freaking the Dominoes. There's a King Crimson song in the set. Steppenwolf. It's like kind of a broad palette of we just throw them in the tumbler and something comes out.
We have a question right there, shows up on the screen from Elaine. With inspiration from the Beatles, Santana, and other classic rock artists, how do you choose which of their songs to play in a jazz style? Is it just songs that you really loved growing up?
I think maybe Alex and Mitch were subjected to my lists of hundreds of songs. Yeah, there's so many songs I love, and then you just have to go, okay, which ones really resonate the most with me, and what can I see to do something with this song that will have a new exposition, I mean, some songs you just can't do anything with. The statement's already made, I mean, people try it, they do it over and over again, but like Little Wing, Mitch, how many times have we played Little Wing? And it's one of my favorite songs. The original Little Wing is like 2 minutes and 37 seconds. It's like a haiku almost. It's this tiny little poem, and we're all trying to explore it. It's really, we take the songs that I find songs that resonate and try to do those,
I think too, one of the things that I would say about the concept is that we think of jazz more as a language and less as a style. So I think the backdrop is music holistically. It's about being musical, and then the jazz language is more the soloistic choices, and the harmonic choices might be a little more adventurous than on the traditional versions. But I still think it's more of jazz language rather than jazz style, if that makes sense.
I like that.
I have a great story what that is concerned, because when I first played with the band, Karl sent me a list of songs which included Carry On, right? Which is, I believe, by Crosby, Stills, Nash. Is that right? Okay. Yes. So Carry On by Crosby, Stills, Nash. And I misunderstood that and learned Carry On Wayward Son by Carrie. I was like, okay, this is
George, I think we're from the same generation, because that was my first thought too.
that was mine too. That was mine too. When he put that on, I said, really? We're going to do that?
Great concept. So, and then I heard the Living Standards version of Carry On. I'm like, whoa, they're really taking it out there. This is like, I can't. This is completely different. But nice. Yeah, so there you go.
We're going a bit over on time because of those technical issues we had earlier. John, is there another question you want to ask? A last question from you?
Wow. That's a good question. I mean, are you guys going to looking, once the COVID gets behind us and there's live music again, are you looking to take this on the road, do some dates with playing this music?
Yeah, that's the plan. They're hoping we, there's a recording in the mix, and just keep it moving, right, left.
Well, good. I know a place you might be able to get a gig, so.
Yeah, great.
Actually, we're always looking for something different at the Jazz Festival. Like this year, Dean Brown is producing a show called The Summer of Love, and he's taking all music from. The Summer of Love, 68, 69, and that, and putting a jazz twist to them. Put together an all-star band, and so I for our festival, we do all genres of jazz and gospel, straight ahead, contemporary, whatever. I'm not big on labels, but things like this I find very interesting. It exposes people who have pop sensibilities or fans of pop music to hear it in a different way and put a jazz twist to it. Because so many people like that, when they hear jazz, they go, "Ooh,"
Yep.
I think it's going to be just a trill or something like that. But yeah, I think this is really cool. I love the concept a lot. That music is because many of the people who follow this come to live music or old rock and rollers fans. I mean, the demographics come to our festival are 50 plus, so they know that music, and they know they can recognize that music. They love jazz. They also like the music from their past, their younger days.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So we always, every program have commercial music students submit questions, and they have a question for you. It's kind of a long one, but I think it's a good one personally. I'd love to hear each of your answers if you could real quick. In jazz, there's a lot of improvisation, and sometimes things just don't go right. Does this happen to professionals too? Is there a time where something wasn't going just right as it should in a concert? And what advice do you have for a young musician if they find themselves in that situation? First of all, does a mistake ever happen? Like, does an obvious mistake ever happen? I'm assuming yes. I've been around enough live pro shows that even pros have mistakes sometimes, right?
But I think with improvisational music, it's number one, it's about the chemistry between all the players.
Yep.
And I mean, I think Herbie Hancock said it really well when he was talking about playing with Miles. And Herbie said something like, you want to practice and you want to be perfect for the people, And Miles told me, no, don't do that. Just practice on the bandstand. He goes, that was such a different thing for me. It's like, I wanted to always be perfect, but he's like, no, go, take it out. So like I think you try to cover it up, or somebody else will maybe, it's like on a basketball court. If you make a mistake, somebody else comes over and guards your man because you screwed up. It's all about chemistry, I think.
That's the way I see it, Mitch. It's, I do a lot of like avant-garde, and I play a lot in Europe, and there are some people I play with that don't even believe there are mistakes. They believe that it's your subconscious. This is actually what you intended to play. You went for one thing and another thing came out. So then, like you're saying, like you have someone covers for you on the court, you make something new from that thing that is just a new idea that maybe is something that you originally didn't intend to play.
Love that.
I think too, getting to play with musicians of this super high caliber, it's something many students when they're in school don't have the opportunity to do yet. And the difference is like, so if I make a mistake, which happens quite a bit, they'll somehow massage the mistake so to the listener won't realize that I just made a mistake. And it's also because they're able to hear everything I play. And also I trust that they'll be able to massage the mistake into something new. So I let them do their thing. And I think that's what happens. So for me, getting to play with these level people, I get that advantage, because when you play with other students, what happens is they are not hearing everything yet. So you might actually throw them off when you play something right. But when you play with top pros like these guys, you play something wrong. Not only do you not throw them off, but they make it sound like you meant to do that, and it was the hippest thing you ever played.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, there are. I played with a lot of musicians that destroy themselves after gigs because they think they screwed up, and meanwhile nobody else knows it.
Yeah, that's true.
Nobody else knows it. I mean, I had that for a little while. I was on tour with this band, Steve Kimmock Band, and I was walking around backstage after the show going like, oh man, that sucked. That was terrible. What a horrible show. And Steve comes over to me and says, man, what are you doing? Because these people come to see the show and that's their, you might have made somebody feel amazing tonight.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
Then a girl comes over to me and says, I've got cancer. And I just watching you guys for the 3 hours was my bliss. It was my release from that that same night, you know. So I was sitting there destroying myself over a terrible show, and then all of a sudden she says that was the greatest thing I've ever done. It keeps me away from being sick. So I immediately went, you know. But I do know people who beat themselves up, and some great players.
What do you feel? You want to weigh in on this?
Oh, yeah, no, I can only agree with everything that has been said before. I think context is incredibly important, you know. And the other thing is not to stop, you know, like Karl said, like left, right, keep moving, you know. The next time around, what you think is a mistake might actually have developed into yet another theme. You know, it might have developed into another statement, one way or the other. It might have developed into your particular personality, right? So it, you know, one thing that I really appreciate about playing with this group and playing in general is playing with players who have personalities and who are not shying away from showing that. I certainly have a strong personality, and has been extremely beneficial to me to step forward as such. I like that you know, creative exchange, and that really comes from keeping it moving, no matter what just happened. One of the beautiful things about music is that after the moment it happens, you know, unless it's a recording, after the moment it happens, it's gone. Like it's not you can't touch it, you know, you have a memory of it, and hopefully that memory is linked to a feeling. So, you know, who's to say what's right and what's wrong? You know, if you have a good memory of something and it triggered a feeling, I cannot imagine that anything can be wrong with that, really.
Nice. And that's a great way to end. This is such a cool conversation. I love for it to keep going, but we're way over in time, so we do have to wrap it up. Can you guys just tell us each how, if someone wants to learn more about you or follow you on social media or whatever, where do they go? Why don't we start with George, and we'll go the opposite direction?
Oh, you can very easily find me on social media, George Farmer or GeorgeFarmerBass.com. George Farmer or George Farmer Bass on social media. My website is GeorgeFarmer.com. I also have, I host and curate a group on Facebook called George's Bass Chat that I recommend everybody checking out. It's great interviews, great content, and that's where you can find me. I'm an open book.
Nice. Alex.
So right now I'm posting upcoming gigs and concerts on my Instagram page, which is Ace of Spades Piano. That's what I go by. Yeah. So there you go.
Cool.
Yeah, man. Well, he's from the new generation, you know. I'm old school. I'm like KarlLatham.com and KarlLatham.org, and you know, Facebook, Karl Latham, and Concerts from the Cabin, which is who's here.
And that's
this
on
week?
Facebook, right?
Yeah, Martin Pizzarelli's up here this week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, well, John. I know Alex through John Lee. John Lee was the best man at my wedding.
It's LATHAM. That's okay.
LATHAM. Yep.
Yeah,
and Concerts at the Cabin. Who else is here? Steve Meyerson's coming. John Lee's coming back again. And the end of the month, Lawrence Hobgood. I don't know if you know Lawrence, but Lawrence.
Oh, I see why. Karl, I just noticed your name is misspelled on the screen. I think that's where she got it from.
Is it? Oh, yeah,
It's got an I in it. Yeah.
Maybe this is the new stage name.
Yeah, there you go. The name of the next group. Mitch, how can we learn more about you?
MitchStein.com. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I think the Instagram is Mitch Stein -9.
Okay.
And I have, a couple of CDs that are out there.
Nice.
It's a Herminator CD, my latest solo record. So
awesome. It's been awesome talking to you guys. I can't wait to see you guys on April 23rd at 6 p.m. for a live performance here behind Kutztown University's Schaefer Auditorium. Again, anybody interested in joining us, either online or in person, can get tickets for free. It's free for the public. through kupresents.org. And if you guys have the time, I know we went long. If you don't, that's fine. But after the program, I'd love to chat with you guys a minute. But we're going to have to say goodbye to you now online and to the rest of the world. But John and I are going to say a few words, and then we're going to wrap up the program. Thanks for coming on, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. All right.
So, John, thanks again for being my co-host today. And,
it was great. I enjoyed it very much.
So I'm looking forward to your festival in August. I mean, it's gonna be a great time. A lot of choices. People can buy tickets to individual shows too, right? They don't have to get the whole.
Right. Everything's individual, so all a la carte. Nice. And we keep our prices low, so we encourage people to go to more than one concert. So it's good. I really enjoyed that conversation with those guys. It was fun. I learned something, and I learned about other musicians, which is great. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, you're welcome to hang out after the show too. Just stay right where you are, unless you have to go, which is understandable.
No, I'm good right now. I'll hang on for a minute.
All right, cool. I'm going to just wrap up the show. So it was good having you on. Thank you, John. I want to thank everybody that came on the show today. Karl Latham, Alex Collins, Mitch Stein, and George Farmer. Again, come see them perform on April 23rd here at Kutztown University. Also, big thank you to Berks Jazz Fest.